Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Really excited to be speaking to Meagan Day, who is a contributor at Jacobin, an editor at Jacobin, a writer at Jacobin, very prolific, the author of a new book also, which she can talk to us about. Meagan, thanks for joining us. Tell us why to not lose hope and where you are and what you're doing.
Okay, well, it's been the craziest week in memory. I'm sure everyone else has experienced the same thing that I have. After the last round of primaries, the centrist punditry was sort of making it clear that they believed that Bernie Sanders ought to drop out, that the contest was over, and so on. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I think that the path to victory is somewhat narrow for Bernie Sanders over Joe Biden in the contest for the Democratic Party nomination. But why it's not impossible that Bernie would win. Historically speaking, people who have fought for the kinds of things that we're fighting for, things like Medicare for all, Green New Deal, tuition-free college, anything that harms corporate profits and helps people, have had to squeeze our way through some pretty narrow spaces in the past. So we don't give up just because the path is narrow, right? So these are my two basic immediate reactions to what happened after Tuesday, when there was this sort of great outpouring of calls for Bernie Sanders to drop out of the race, and really a very concerted effort to get Bernie Sanders' supporters to give up hope and pack it in. My initial response was absolutely don't do that. Have heart, have some courage, get on the dialer. Let's fight this thing out till the end. Now, that was my initial reaction. Now, everything is completely different. The world just completely got turned upside down in the last week. I mean, coronavirus had hit American soil, a while back, weeks ago, but it just hit American consciousness, right? And because of that, something really extraordinary has begun to happen, which is that many of the same people who have been telling us to pack it up and go home are now actually looking at the chaos and disarray around us and looking at the way that the Trump administration is responding to coronavirus inadequately and chaotically. And they are beginning to demand things that look very similar to Bernie Sanders' platform, the platform that he's running on, right? If you're familiar with the work of Naomi Klein, who wrote a book called The Shock Doctrine, the thesis of that is that in times of crisis, neoliberals, people who sort of serve the interests of capital, will take advantage of the state of emergency in order to push through policies that hurt working people. What
like Katrina.
Precisely. Yeah. What we're witnessing right now is an emergency that has the potential to break in basically either direction. This is, I think, in large part in the United States due to the visibility of Bernie Sanders for the past 5 years in American politics and the visibility of social democratic demands. People are starting to talk about things like, if we had Medicare for all, then your insurance wouldn't be tethered to your job. And the fact that people are getting sent home from their jobs and potentially facing layoffs and therefore facing uninsurance in the midst of a public health crisis wouldn't be adding financial devastation on top of the public health crisis that we're experiencing. So these kinds of conversations are actually happening right now. And the point that I'm trying to make is that we are at a critical juncture where there are the Trump administration and various right-wing forces and even various conservative forces on the periphery of the Democratic Party are actually trying to push us in the direction that these things typically go, which is toward more austerity, more privatization, more evisceration of the welfare state. But there's actually a mainstream current right now trying to push us in another direction, not just a fringe lefty current, but people on, talking heads on CNN are conceding the superior wisdom of nations that have implemented single-payer health care. Yeah. It's astonishing. It's a testament, really, to the hard work that people on the left, chiefly Bernie Sanders and those who have been fighting for his campaign, his first and his second campaign, have done over time to popularize these ideas and mainstream them. So now, to end this long monologue, if I thought that we should keep fighting before, I now extra think that we should keep fighting. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the primary. I do think that we could pull it off. I think Bernie could win the primary still. However, regardless of whatever happens with the primary, we are in a critical moment in American politics where we can use the fact that the primary is happening and that the chief mascot for American social democracy is running to make this thing break in our favor. And by our favor, I mean in favor of the majority of people, as opposed to the tiny little band, the small minority that owns private productive assets, i.e. the capitalist. Right. So get on the dialer, keep phone banking. I know, keep text banking. It is hard to
get the Burn app. The Burn app.
The Burn app. Thank you so much. Yeah, download the Burn app. Bernie Sanders' campaign was not preparing for a pandemic, but it turns out that they built a piece of technology that was very useful in a pandemic. Yeah. They built this social networking app for you to campaign remotely. Please download it. Please use it. Joe Biden's campaign certainly doesn't have anything like that. We need to take advantage of the technology that the Bernie campaign has actually already put in place for reasons that have nothing to do with the pandemic, just because it's smart social media policy, right? Yeah. We need to take advantage of that right now. Meanwhile, Joe Biden can't even pull off live streaming a Zoom call on Facebook. And people in his campaign and around his campaign have been like, "Oh, technical difficulties. We're pioneering something that's never been done before. We're trying to campaign in a pandemic. It's never been done before. Cut us a break." No, they're just trying to live stream a Zoom call. Bernie Sanders does stuff like this all the time. Massive failure. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point is
I tweeted because I tweeted out CNN reports that the dog ate Biden's homework, because they literally tweeted, this is CNN, not his campaign. Former Vice President Joe Biden's first virtual town hall was a technical calamity as his campaign confronts the same challenges of unexpected remote work that millions of Americans are facing as a result of the coronavirus pandemic.
I mean, Bernie Sanders has been doing stuff like this since his last campaign. Yeah. I mean, Bernie Sanders, he may be an old guy, but Bernie Sanders' campaign has been on the forefront of digital
because they understand that the corporate media won't let him in, so they've had to pursue these other routes, including Jacobin, of course.
Yeah, and he live streams nearly everything that he does. Interactive live streams are things that Bernie Sanders has been doing for a long time, and he's done them on multiple platforms. Yeah. Joe Biden's massive technical failures last night, to say nothing of the sort of human malfunction that we saw in the 4 minutes that was made available to us, cannot be chalked up to the exigencies of a pandemic. The guy just doesn't know how to use technology. His campaign doesn't know how to use technology. And I have an important point about this, which is that not only is there an opening for us to push for Bernie's campaign and Bernie's politics using the social media apparatus that his campaign has already built and that his supporters are very familiar with and adept at. But secondly, I think that we should all stop for a moment and think about how horrifying it is that Joe Biden, who cannot even speak to the nation in the midst of a global pandemic for more than 4 minutes, because that was what was made available to the American public from his 20-minute town hall, right? Because that was the only thing that was usable, that we are planning to send him up against Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually does have a technically proficient team. This is a disaster waiting to happen.
And a lot of Dems don't realize, they really don't get that. They said this with Hillary too. It's like, well, Trump is so stupid, so Biden can beat him because Trump is so dumb, even if he forgets what he's saying. That's not how it works, because Trump doesn't run on being smart, and Biden does run on being being a statesman, an articulate statesman. A little gaffe prone, but yeah.
Trump runs on telling it like it is, I think, more than anything else. And a lot of times that translates into identifying people's most apparent weaknesses and not holding back as he pokes at it. Why are we sending someone up there who has 7 or 8 different obvious and apparent weaknesses? This is a huge disaster.
And who gets really angry and pokes back, literally pokes people physically, or tells people to vote for someone else when they ask why they should vote for him.
Unbelievable. I mean, Joe Biden there's so many different things that Trump can exploit. And first of all, while we're talking about this, it drives me absolutely nuts that when we on the left point out Joe Biden's weaknesses, people will say, stop, you're hurting him, hurting him.
You're helping him.
You think that Donald Trump is not capable of noticing that Joe Biden
of course
is losing his mind?
I know.
He's obviously already noticed this. You think that Donald Trump wouldn't know to press Joe Biden on being pro-NAFTA if I didn't say something, if the left didn't say something.
Totally,
he literally did it to Hillary Clinton last time. So in any case, that's obnoxious. But yeah, Biden has so many things wrong with him. The only thing that that we can see in the distance that Donald Trump might be able to use against Bernie Sanders. It's not nothing, but it's the only thing, which is that Bernie is a radical socialist, right?
Yeah.
And here's something that occurred to me recently. Somebody else made this comment on Twitter, and I liked it a lot, and I thought about it, and I will now restate it for you. The nickname that Trump uses for Bernie is Crazy Bernie.
Crazy Bernie, right?
You know, that somebody responded to something that I said on Twitter by sharing the Apple ad that like made them, that was really popular. That was like, just so crazy it might work is the sort of, I don't remember this ad.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually very common in American popular culture. The idea that somebody might be called crazy if they're actually really creative or if they're ahead of their time. And in a way, calling Bernie Sanders Crazy Bernie, it kind of reinforces that for, the half or maybe more than half of the country who thinks that these ideas' time have come. And it also concedes Trump's coveted outsider status, which is what he won against Hillary Clinton on for Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders is the crazy outsider, right? I don't think that what Trump has on Bernie is a sure bet. I think that it's like a toss-up as to whether it will scare people who want safety or excite people who want change, right? Crazy like a fox, just so crazy it might work, Bernie. Like, I'm not sure that this is foolproof.
Right, and and every day he says this, and it's totally true. He's like, these are not radical ideas, they're mainstream ideas. So he can point to, Trump is the one who's out of touch on this. And I do think it's true. Like, he's pretty good. Trump is like a good rapper. Like, he comes up with pretty good, like, digs and nicknames for people. And, Lying Ted, was it Sleepy?
It's Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe. And then what was it for Jeb Bush? Low Energy. But I don't think crazy, like, all of those things actually speak to a real weakness. Bernie is not someone who's like, he's kind of crazy. I mean, people I think don't even his people who hate him think that he's just like too extreme maybe. But the crazy thing, it just doesn't have the je ne sais quoi that Trump nails it with which Trump nails other people's nicknames.
Exactly. I think the point is this. It might work for some people, but those people already dislike Bernie Sanders' policies anyway. And to everybody else, it could go either way because it could, like, what you mean when you call someone crazy when they're putting forward radical, or not radical, but like,
quote unquote radical.
Quote unquote radical ideas. It could be an advantage just as much as it could be a weakness, whereas there's no advantage to Sleepy Joe.
Exactly.
The guy, he can't do events late in the day or else he's completely incomprehensible. There's no upside to that. There's no way to spin that the way that you can spin like they called me crazy, but I was just ahead of my time.
Exactly. Totally. You can't be like, they called me sleepy. They didn't know they called me sleepy. They didn't know I was on Ambien.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. And that's not even the only thing that Trump is going to go after Joe Biden for. I mean, his son. His son, I think that his record of supporting various policies, whether that's mass incarceration or NAFTA or the Iraq War, and then his personal temperament, whether that's the fact that he is rambling and incoherent, or the fact that he gets bizarrely aggressive with voters when he's met with very benign political challenges that he should have a canned response for. Yeah. I mean, it's all over the place. Huge disaster.
Probably the hair smelling too. He'll probably say, I just engage in locker room talk, but I'm not inappropriate with women. I mean, who knows? But he,
I think that's true. I mean, I think, look, we could go on and on. It's just a train wreck. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say for certain that there's no possible way in the world that Joe Biden could beat Donald Trump because, as we've seen with coronavirus this past week, the future is entirely unknowable. Yeah. And its vicissitudes are very extreme right now. I feel like I'm living in a new world every single week. Yeah. So I can't tell you for certain that Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump, but I can tell you for damn certain that Bernie Sanders is a safer bet to beat Donald Trump. And the idea that Joe is more electable and Joe is safer, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's a complete sham, and I always have. But I think that coronavirus and the inadequate response of the Trump administration and the very sort of vacuous restatement of problems that Joe Biden has given us, that's the most he's been able to give us, is like, we should do something in the following areas. making sure that people have food to eat, making sure that people get medical care. It's like, thanks, Joe. Yeah, we know that we should probably do that stuff. Whereas Bernie's been giving these very concrete solutions that are they come naturally to him because they are just manifestations of the platform that he's been running on for the last 5 years. Yeah. They're just tweaked for the present moment, right?
Right.
So, and I think that, so backing up, I think that this idea that Joe is safe and Bernie is risky could get inverted very quickly because of coronavirus, especially with the debate tomorrow, which everybody's going to be inside and everybody's going to be watching.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So I don't know if it'll be enough to put Bernie over the edge, but at this point, A, I hope it is. And B, I also think that this is bigger than just the primary. We need to stop the potential slide into austerity, privatization, more neoliberalism that these kinds of crises tend to augur. We need to actually make it break in another direction. And so we need to be using the Bernie campaign, and he needs to be using his platform as a vehicle to really push that for just broader political purposes.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Anything else you want to tell listeners, viewers, like any things that you're doing, writing, speaking at? Are you,
Well, I'm quarantined like the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, my co-writer, Micah Utrecht, who's an editor at Jacobin, we wrote a book called Bigger Than Bernie, How We Go from the Sanders Campaign to Democratic Socialism. It's coming out in late April. Its publication date has not been moved. The tour that we've been planning for it is clearly thrown into some chaos, but you can still pre-order it and you can read it in your self-isolation once it out in late April. And we tried to write it, we tried very hard to write a book that would point to the appropriate next steps no matter what the scenario was at the time that it came out. And I'm very glad that we tried to do that because because like I said, it just seems impossible to predict the future from week to week. So please check that out if you're watching and if you're interested to learn more about what we're supposed to do next.
Great. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Meagan M. Day, and you can read my writing on Jacobin multiple times a week.
Great. And also, full disclosure, we have to reveal conflicts of interest. You and your fiance are in a you guys are both the wives of Bernie Sanders. You guys are both married.
Like
Something like that. Yeah. Your spirit wives. You're his spirit wives. Well, he doesn't know that. He's your spirit husband without his knowing. Yeah. Yeah.
That is knowledge.
Yeah. See, the future's unknown. You probably didn't predict that you'd be having a third person who was a dude in your marriage.
Not at all. Never predicted it. Not for a moment.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Katie. Have a good one.
Thanks, Meagan. Bye.
Bye.